Hi, I'm Jodie Harsh. You're listening to the House Culture Podcast.
House Culture.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the House Culture Podcast with me, your host, the managing editor at House Culture, Matt Rouse. Thank you, dear listener, for choosing to invite us into your head to listen to our podcast today. It really does mean a lot to us, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you, as we've had some amazing stats come through from Spotify that places this podcast into the top 2.5% of shows in the world, as well as the top 10% of most followed shows worldwide. To say I'm humbled by that doesn't even come close, so thanks again for being a part of this journey with us. However, if it's your first time here, then I'd like to welcome you to House Culture. We are a collective of house music fans who have come together through their mutual love of the beat to celebrate the spirit of house music. Instagram is where you can find our main party, so come and join us and over 100,000 others on a virtual dance floor where everyone is welcome. And if you haven't already, please have a dig through our back catalogue of incredible podcast guests as we approach our 50th episode. I can't believe I'm saying that. We've spoken to people from across the entire spectrum of club culture, whether that's Strictly Rhythm co-founder Gladys Pizarro, legendary DJs like Paul Oakenfold and Roger Sanchez, club promoters such as Danny Clockwork or Dave Jones, or even Pike's Hotel creative director Dawn Hindle. There really is something for everyone. Coming up on this episode, I sat down with a fierce drag queen who's made a massive impact within the house music and LGBTQ+ community. A DJ and producer who always delivers the energy to the dance floor. It is, of course, the one and only Jodie Harsh. In our chat, you'll hear what originally turned her on to club culture.
I remember my family bought a Ministry of Sound compilation, and I remember thinking, what's Ministry of Sound? And found out that it was a club. So that CD also opened my eyes to this nocturnal world of things that go bump in the night.
The importance of her first clubbing experiences.
First time I ever went to a club was GAY at the London Astoria. I remember walking in very nervous and my mind was blown. It was 2,000 people that were like me.
Which legendary club night was unmissable for her during those early years?
So I went to trade at Turnmills, and that's where I properly fell in love with being out and dancing to house music. And we'd dance there until 11 a.m.
And just how important it is for her to participate in this nocturnal world of ours.
Nightlife can be a really important thing for someone, whether it's a release, an escape, learning who you are, can be a refuge, it could be community. It's amazing to be a part of that and to soundtrack it as well, because music's really medicine. I think it's a real privilege to be able to share that with people.
I hope you're ready. This is Jodie Harsh.
House Culture.
Hi Jodie, thank you so much for sitting down with us on the House Culture Podcast. It's much appreciated in your hectic, busy life and diary that you've got. You are a fierce force of nature behind the decks, a producer of high energy house music, and someone who has been described as Britain's best known drag queen. We want to hear about all of those many, many talents of yours, but before we do, we always like to start at the beginning and ask, where did you grow up and how did you first discover music that you loved?
So I grew up in Canterbury in Kent, which is a very nice place to visit for a day or two. But as sort of a young queer kid, I just couldn't wait to escape that sort of small town, really, and be in London, in the bright lights of London. And yeah, growing up there was fine. I had a really nice childhood, but I'm not saying I felt like a big fish in a small pond, but I definitely felt like there were other places that I needed to get to. Obviously, later on in life, later on in my teenage years, I found out that was nightlife. That's what I was attracted to. And I've always been a bit of a magpie. I've always liked sort of colourful, shiny things, and I've always liked dance music, and I've always liked I've basically always been very engaged with culture ever since I was a child, and you know, I've always been a fan of things. So I definitely wanted to go out and explore that, basically, and really kind of swim in that. So couldn't wait to get to London. Basically, my first sort of glimpse into dance music was my parents. There was always a lot of music in my house. There was
Hmm.
always a lot of soul. There was always a lot of disco. My mum's a big disco fan
Hmm.
from back in the day. And when I remember my family bought a CD, a Ministry of Sound compilation. I think maybe it was a double CD. One of them was maybe Paul Van Dyke or something. The
Hmm.
other one was mixed by Boy George.
Okay.
And it was a little more funky, little more vocal.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, "What's this? This is dance music." I was a kid, but I remember just completely smashing that CD to
Hmm.
pieces and listening to it like 5 times a day.
Yeah.
So I can't really remember any tunes that are on it right now, but but that's definitely where my ears pricked up
Hmm.
to dance music and dance music culture. And obviously, I was like, what's Ministry of Sound? And found out that it was a club. So that CD also opened my eyes to this world of like this nocturnal world of like things that go bump in the night, basically, that I was fascinated by when I was younger and couldn't wait to get to.
Hmm. Hmm. And like when you were listening to that CD, did you have any idea of like it was a DJ, someone was putting it together, like in terms of mixing, or was it just a case of I love the music?
Yeah, both CDs were completely mixed together.
Mm.
So I guess that made sense as being a DJ set. And I remember seeing pictures of Boy George in a full face of makeup and a crazy hat, DJing and sort of carrying around a record box and stuff. I remember maybe I don't know, I probably saw it on like News Round or something. I don't know, like I saw it on the TV somewhere. And I remember that visual really drew me in as well into this world because also I was like, wow, it's a man in makeup
Hmm.
who's kind of playing with gender, putting music on, conducting this giant room full of people that are dancing, and it something just felt quite sort of tribal and quite kind of like oh, how would you describe it? Like a secret that people were in on.
Hmm.
Um, and a collection of people kind of sharing a moment. I remember definitely feeling that, so I couldn't wait to get out and try it.
So tell me about you grew up in Canterbury. What was the clubbing experience like there? Was that like you weren't even interested in that?
Excuse me. There was a club, and it was called the Biz, and I don't know if it's actually still there. I think it's
Hmm.
called something else now. It's probably been turned into a Weatherspoons or something. But it was that was the club. I remember we went there and drunk like hooches and stuff, and I was like 14 years old.
Hmm.
It's crazy what I got away with.
Well,
Wait, my mum's just texted me. Let me see what this is. Oh, my mum just texted me saying they've just played My House on Radio 1.
ah,
Sorry.
don't worry.
I digress. So the Biz in
Mm.
Canterbury was the spot, and
Hmm.
also Canterbury is a very young city because it's got a huge university.
Yeah.
So there were always lots of young people around, but yeah, not the most diverse nightlife offering in
Hmm.
that city, to be honest. And also, it's only an hour and a half away from London.
So what was your first clubbing experience in London? Where did you go?
First time I ever went to a club was GAY at the
Hmm.
London Astoria. I was 15 years old. And I remember walking in very nervous,
Uh-huh.
great fake ID.
Hmm.
Walked in with my best girlfriend at the time, and like my mind was blown. It was thousands of people dancing to the music that I loved,
Hmm.
and it was thousands of people that were like 2,000 people that were like me.
Hmm.
And I wasn't really around many LGBTQ plus people, and suddenly I was in a room sharing a moment with literally thousands of them, and that moment was very transformative to me. I
Yeah.
remember walking in and thinking, "Oh, I'm home. Oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. Oh, now it all makes sense. Oh, this is everything together that I'm interested in and engaged in. Like everything made sense in that one moment."
Hmm. And yeah, just finding that tribal instinct in amongst your people on a dance floor. It's like you said, it's completely
Yeah.
transformative.
Yeah, and I really learned a lot about myself through clubbing at that age. I mean, I was absolutely too young to go out,
Hmm.
but for me personally, I wasn't really out. I wasn't out to my parents until a little later, and it was a place for me to really explore myself, who I am, what I like, whether that was musically, sexually, who I wanted to be friends with, that kind of thing. Because you know, okay, so they were going to clubs, but the straight boys in my school were not doing anything different. They just weren't doing it in nightclubs. They just weren't as evolved. And yeah, I got away with going there for ages and ages until, well, I say ages, probably 6 months, until one day I got challenged about my fake ID by a security guard who I thought was my pal, who I was like said hi to on the way in.
Yeah.
And they did not let me in. They said you're going to need to bring a passport or a driving license. And I was 15 years old. I was like, fuck, I've lost my kind of like my connection with like who I am. This like nightclub that I was coming to every Saturday night. And so my group of friends, some of my group of friends were a little bit older than me, and they were like, well, let's go to trade. So I went to trade at Turnmills, legendary sort of like hard house club in Clerkenwell. I went there at 16 years old. I was like dancing in the middle of the dance floor with like sweaty men with the tops off. And that's where I properly fell in love with being out and dancing to house music. Because GAY at the Astoria was pop, it was remixed pop music. But in Trade, it was a hard house club, but they had a separate room called Trade Lights. And that's where DJs like Smoking Joe would DJ. And that's where it was a little more funky. Things were a bit more soulful, a bit more vocal. And we'd dance there until 11 a.m.
Yeah, wow. I mean, yeah, we've spoken to Smoking Joe on this podcast and Tall Paul as well. And there's so many Trade Turnmill stories. It's an incredible venue.
Totally. And this was after its peak. Like I wasn't there in its absolute peak moment. This was sort of as it was not petering out, but you know, it'd been around for a long time by the time I was 16 and going there. So but I was fully in then. I was like, right, I love house music, I love dance music and the culture around it. I love partying and I love staying up till 11 a.m. then getting the train home being completely eyes like saucers. I'm like, are you all right? I'm like, tired. I'm just gonna like try and go to sleep. I like, God, I was such a terror.
I mean, do you look back on that and do you actually think that you were too young, or do you think that
I think now in retrospect, I think I was a bit too young. I think, but at the time, I really needed it, and it was a different time as well. Like there was no social media, there was no. You know, I wasn't out. For me, it served its purpose, and I did. Because I think if I hadn't have found the queer scene or the club life that I was in, and these new friends that I made, I don't know where I would be. Yeah. Because at 15 years old, with not knowing anyone else like me, with that shared experience, I don't know. I mean, I'd have gone into such a depression and such a. You know, luckily, I only lived an hour and a half from London. Yeah. I could, you know, climb out a window and get on a train and sort of be myself. But if I couldn't do that for years and years to come, I don't know. Yeah. Where I'd have been. So for me at the time, it was fine. I do look back and think, oh God, that's so young. But also, like, you shouldn't really have regrets in life. And honestly, I had a fucking great time. So whatever. I don't recommend other people go to nightclubs at 15 at all. But for me, I really needed that at that time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like you say, if it feels young, I was going to raves with my brother when I was 14. So I completely feel like, you know, and I had a great time and all of these things. And it's like, you know, you do look back and think, wow, you know, that she's very young. But, you know, young. you like you say, you find this community out there that is completely for you. So you moved from Canterbury into London and to study at the London College of Fashion, is that right?
I did, yeah. When I was 18, I got into London College of Fashion. I did a degree in journalism. I wanted to be a writer. I kind of wanted to be like a writer at Vogue magazine or something. And while I was at uni, I basically went out every single night. And that's where I started working in nightclubs to sort of pay my way, you know, through university and you know, couldn't really survive on a student loan. And my parents didn't really have any money to give me. So I had to work somehow. And so it was nightlife. And that's where my connections were and stuff. So I'd like do the door and dress up and sort of do dance on the bar. And I don't know, like just whatever job at like, I used to do like I think I once did like the till at the end for a few months. I used to make so much money from it. So I used to like rob them blind. It's so funny. Only like 50 quid and stuff, but you know, like I'd be like 10 in the till, 10 for me. and then so while I was studying, I finished my degree and I did well in my degree.
Mm,
But I was fully in the club scene.
yeah,
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 I really managed to juggle going out all night and then studying in the day and going to lectures and stuff. And I think at that age you just can, right?
yeah,
You just
yeah.
kind of have so much more energy. And yeah, I hung out with DJs and was getting into all the clubs and parties and hanging out with all sorts of fun, interesting people and supermodels and fucking pop stars and
Hmm.
it was like complete madness. I
Yeah.
loved it.
And so, I mean, at that stage when you were studying or whatever, did you feel that, okay, things are turning now? It's like maybe, a career in journalism or whatever is not where I want to follow through on. It's more
Yeah.
leaning into the nightlife.
For halfway through my degree, I was like,
Mm.
I do not want to be a journalist. I just don't. It just doesn't really serve what kind of like and the exciting life that I wanted to lead,
Mm.
which for me was just being out really late in flashing lights and smoke machines. Kind of that's just real. I was just completely obsessed with it.
Uh-huh.
So, but I finished my degree.
Yeah, and you say that you did well out of it as well, which is the main thing.
And just having a degree, I think, was an important thing for me personally, because
Mm.
I guess not to prove a point, but I just wanted to have it just to go, well, I've got a degree. It was important that I just had that,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
maybe to prove a point, actually. Yeah.
So what happened after that then? Where you were promoting your own events and running things, and
Yeah.
so to talk to us about that.
Yeah. I started, so from working in nightclubs
Mm.
in drag and stuff, and I started getting a little bit known for being like the it girl.
Mhm.
And I threw a 21st birthday party for myself. And that then made me realize that, oh, maybe I can. I mean, everyone was at this fucking party. It was like completely insane. It was really like a hot thing. It was in all the papers. There was just so many famous people and interesting people, fashion people and
Mhm.
art people and stuff. Music people just brought a lot of different people together. And I thought, oh, I could maybe do that. I could actually be a club promoter.
Yeah.
So I did start to do my own club nights and throwing like raves and stuff.
Mhm.
And that then led to me, because budgets were quite low at the time. So I thought, I love music. Most of my friends are DJs. Why don't I learn how to DJ?
Yeah.
So one of my best friends, who's DJ, still very successful DJ, taught me basically how to use CDJs,
Mhm.
and I loved it. And haven't looked back.
So, I mean, that was the logical next step, right? I mean, were you said you had a mentor, someone to kind of show you the ropes. That was it then, you were all in. What style of music were you kind of leaning towards at that stage? Is it something that's developed over time?
It's definitely developed. At first, it was definitely sort of like a bit more open format than what I play now. Like it was just kind of whatever I was into.
Hmm.
It was a different time as well. Like, I feel like in clubs you can kind of get away with just like playing anything. Um, then I started to really hone in on house music and dance music in general, but house and disco are the sort of the two pools that I pull from,
Hmm.
basically.
Hmm.
I'm a little more rigid
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and what were those kind of early gigs like in terms of performing and getting into character and all of those things? Were there any moments where you were like, oh, I'm really nervous, or like, oh, I've cleared a dance floor, or was it instant impact and you were like, I'm great at this?
Kind of instant impact. I really just like knew how to read a crowd,
Hmm.
give them what they want, and also give put it's got to sound like me and it's got to be what I want to play as well. It's kind of like a little bit of give and take, isn't it? I feel like good DJs, you kind of like play a bit for the crowd, you play a bit for yourself, play a bit for
Hmm.
the crowd, play a bit for yourself. And I've always, yeah, I've probably cleared floors for sure. Well, have I guess. I mean, I think every DJ has as part of the learning experience.
Hmm.
Um, but I knew instantly that I completely loved it. And
Yeah.
I loved being sort of the conductor controlling the room. I just loved playing music
Yeah.
out for
Yeah.
people to dance to and seeing that react and seeing people sort of lose themselves in it. And
happy and dancing, and when you're up in the DJ booth and you see little, you see your friendship groups, and you see sort of people, getting off with someone, you just see the whole thing unfold, and and you're soundtracking that. And you also, people are discovering music that you're playing to them, and if you make music yourself, when you play that, especially when tracks do well, like if I for example, with me, it's My House is kind of my theme tune, and that track did quite well. And when I see people like singing it back, or like requesting it, or like putting their phones up with like "Play My House," or like singing the words back at me, and so it's like, oh, that's amazing, because that's connecting, and that's just basic human connection and interaction, and you're really sharing this sort of like moment in this dark room with flashing lights, and it, like we said earlier, it's kind of tribal. And you can feel so high off a DJ set. I've got a show tonight, and it's like I'm just going to feel so high afterwards and then come down. There's so much like energy. It's the energy exchange. There's like, and it's so exciting, like playing music to people and getting it reacting and having a sea of people jumping up and down in front of you. It's really exciting. There's no feeling like it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's all down to you as well. It's not like, you're part of a band and you've got someone on drums or a bassist over here or whatever. It's 100% on you.
Sometimes I do, for the bigger shows, I do feel it's not really nervous. And it's obviously I'm excited before I play, but it's not nerves. But I do, if I'm stood backstage and there's literally 10,000 people out there, the feeling that I feel is, oof, the pressure's on. Okay, the pressure's on. Right, let's go. Right, this got to be good this time. And also, I do sometimes think, like, because I have a visual show now and all that kind of stuff, and I work with really amazing people who are so good at their jobs, but of course, in any live environment, sometimes there could be a technical hitch that might be in the music, in the sound system, that might be the visuals, whatever. And a bit of anxiety comes in because I just want it to be really good and be really perfect. Because I'm obviously I'm a creative person, so I'm very nitpicky about the performance, and I'll more often than not come off stage and be like, it was fine, but everyone's had the best time out there, but I'm like, oh, the booth monitor was shit, like that was awful, and I'll be like in a foul mood for the rest of the day.
You could be your own worst critic, I think. In those kind of
course.
Yeah.
But that any creative person's like that, I think. I think that's because you want it just to be really good and you love what you do, and you want it to be as perfect as it possibly can. And we work in the live moment, the live environment. So things can sometimes go wrong, and it's a bit scary to think about that. But I get a little, it's not really anxiety. It's just a bit like, woo, pressure.
Yeah. And when you look back, can you kind of pinpoint a part in your career where it was like you came off of a show or a gig or something, or were approaching a gig or playing at a certain club, and we're like, this is going to be like the big break. This is going to launch me to the next level in terms of my career. Can you think about any moments like that?
Whenever you have those moments that you think are going to be the absolute moment, they're not. and it's when you least expect them, or a show that you think's like, no, it's going to be fine. That's more often than not, they're the ones that are like, wow, that's one for the books. But okay, so certain things, I like doing really unusual things. Like I DJ'd on a plane to New York once. That was like fucking insane. Like such a sort of like a random sort of brand deal type thing with Virgin Atlantic. But it was like sick. I was like, oh, that's one for, like that's a great story to tell the grandkids. I DJ'd on a flight to New York. And then like there've been some very big crowds that when you DJ to literally tens of thousands of people, that's like, wow, I'm in such a lucky position that I'm given the opportunity to do that like is such, I feel trusted to take that show on and to be given those opportunities and stuff. I don't take that lightly, and that's so definitely like quite a few of those stick in my mind for sure, as being like really kind of like, wow, I'm allowed to go and do that. That's like really such a privilege.
Yeah. And what's the kind of preference? We've spoken to so many DJs on this, and like I remember when we spoke to Norman Cook, and he was saying, obviously he has a visual show as well, and with huge crowds, and there obviously is pressure there, but it can feel quite constrictive in that sense because it's just so big. It's more of a performance show. And he was like, just talking about the difference between that and a more intimate club. I mean, where do you stand on what your preference is and what you love?
I absolutely love both. They are different types of shows. You can take people on a little bit more of a journey with a little sweaty club, and you feel like you're a bit more in, you're in a 500 cup venue or something. You're a bit more in the crowd. You're kind of in this together. Whereas if you're on a festival stage, I mean, it's amazing to be like a main stage or something, like a Creamfields or whatever, but it's a lot more like pumping it out, going with the visual show. I'll sort of mix out sort of as the breakdown comes in, so it's just energy because it's a different thing. People are at a festival, they've bought a ticket, they haven't bought a ticket to see you. You go into a festival, you've not just bought a ticket to see Jodie Harsh, you've gone because there are 8 stages and they're all going to be fucking fab, and you want to go and explore, and you've got to keep people's attention. You've got to keep people in front of the stage because that's like part of the job. You've got to keep people there partying. So I like to keep the energy up, and I won't play as much of the track. I mean, I'm not mixing out after 30 seconds or anything like that, but like I won't play like an 11-minute extended mix of something. I'll really try and keep the energy going, whereas with a sweaty club, you can afford, no one's going anywhere. They might pop out for a cigarette, but they're in. So you can take them on a little bit more of a journey, be a little bit more self-indulgent maybe, and a bit more educational with like stuff they may not have heard before. There is no preference between them. I love both. I absolutely love both. Yeah, I'm fully up for, major pop star festival show and sweaty nightclub.
Yeah. And you saying about keeping that energy up when you're playing at a festival, something like that, how do you approach your set? Not even maybe even the difference between the two kind of environments, but do you have a beginning, middle and end? Are there certain beats that you've got to hit? Or how do you build your set pre and in the moment?
So I always have a little play with my record box before, usually the day before. And I'll never fully plan a set, but I'll certainly pull some tracks out and throw them into a folder on record box. And I still go between folders, but there are like certain tracks where I'm like, oh, that'll be really good for this one. Because as I said, I liked the full spectrum of dance music, but focusing really on disco and house music, and so I'll start with some sort of more musical stuff, really a bit more disco, still with a hard beat, but and then I'll progress. I might go into a little bit more kind of tribally, a bit more like melee and stuff like that, and take a little carnival halfway through just for a moment, and then we're fully in like proper stripped, like pumping house by the end. That's the narrative that I tend to like to sort of follow, but again, nothing's set in stone, and I can pull from like hundreds of thousands of tracks that I love, but that's the sort of arc that I generally like to create. And basically that's it. I never plan a set like this is the second track, this is the third, this is the fourth. Oh my god, like I guarantee you get out there and it won't be right. You'll sense that's not, the energy isn't at that moment. Like you know what I mean? It's like you can't plan sets. I don't know how anyone could do that. I do not know how anyone could do that. So weird. I've been to gigs and festivals and things, and sometimes you can tell the DJ is just going to play what they want to play, and they've not even considered like the vibe of the previous person or whatever, and they've kind of changed everything, and it's all gone. Those people are called we call those people cunts.
Brilliant, you're so right, it's hilarious. What was I talking about? You've totally thrown me with your cunts thing.
Oh my god.
No,
that is what cunts do.
That is, yeah, you're right, yeah. No, I mean, so we're talking about tracks and sets and whatever. And I mean, you have moved into production. You've already mentioned My House, and you've released Good Time recently as well. I mean, those are absolute pumping house bangers. I mean, how would you describe those productions, and what kind of sound are you going for when you create those tracks?
Well, my house, there was a big sample in it
Mm-hmm.
from a track that I absolutely love by the Mary Jane Girls. And I had that idea in my head for ages before I fully realized it.
That was my next
Um,
question about that sample as well. But yeah.
yeah, yeah, I love that track. And
Uh-huh.
then that Everybody's Welcome in My House bit, that's just me pitched down on Little Altar Boy. And I did that right at the very end. That
Mhm.
wasn't in any of the demos until like it was like I think it was when the track was being mixed or something, and I just like threw that in as like a funny bit that I was hearing in my head.
Mhm.
And I think that bit kind of is one of the bits that's right, one of the hooks, isn't it? It's one of the main
Yeah.
hooks of the track. Um yes, so it's sort of disco kissed house is what that really is.
Mhm.
And same with Good Time as well. Good Time's like very disco. It's got a lot of real instruments in it and stuff. They're very disco-y.
Yeah, and I mean, some of those, some of your tracks have come out kind of during lockdown, and I mean, I suppose a two-pronged question really: how was like lockdown for you as a creative person that feeds off an audience,
Mm.
and how were you when you were creating these tracks? Did you want to road test them? How do you operate in the studio when you're making music? Do you
Yeah.
feel like you need the feedback from the crowd, or are you just like it's done and that's it?
Well, lockdown for me was obviously it was stressful because I couldn't get out there doing what I love, which is playing to real people.
Mm.
But then everyone across the world had exactly the same problem. So I don't want to be all like self-obsessed and indulgent, being like it was terrible because none of us could do any, really do anything like normally. Um, but I'd only just started my music project, my artist project, like 6 months before, as in releasing singles. So I just kept going.
Yeah.
And I don't really like to road test music that much when it's before stuff's mixed and mastered, and really before it's out. Like I know a lot of DJs love just to bash their tunes out when they're like mid making them and just sort of see how they're working on the dance floor and stuff. And I know it's something that I should do more, but I always get a bit like, I've spent so much time in nightclubs, and so much of my life has been spent in nightclubs and on the dance floor, and so much time controlling the room behind the decks that it really is just intuitive and second nature to me now. What's going to sound right? Where the peaks and troughs should be, and I kind of know what's right for the dance floor, like without having to physically be on it. I think so. But of course, when clubs did open back up, I couldn't wait to play it out live then.
Yeah. And is it when you've created those tracks, is it, I think you've already kind of mentioned this as well, but a bit more detail around like the feeling of like something that you've created yourself and you see people singing it back. How special is that relationship that your productions?
Yeah, it's very special. Like it's a whole new element of being a DJ for me, because my artist project has only really, I've been remixing for longer and stuff, but my personal artist project has only been, I guess, like 2.5 years now or something. So it just adds to an extra layer of connection, and it's just cool to be making music. It's like when you're in a band, and you sort of people are singing your music back to you. That must feel so amazing. And I always remember like, oh, I remember writing those lyrics, or oh, I remember those days in the studio making that, or I remember being on my laptop changing that little sound there, and that, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
And like your artist projects as well, you said you've been remixing for ages and you're producing your own things now. I mean, what's your feeling on, can we expect an album, or are you just interested in singles? What's the overarching philosophy and the future hold?
I'd love to do an album at some point. I'm not sure what shape and form it would really take, and I don't know if anyone's like screaming out for a Jodie Harsh album. And it's the dance vibe is a bit more like chucking out singles, right? So, definitely loads of singles, loads of tunes. I'm sat on so much music now, so many good tunes, so many good songs, and I'd love to do another EP actually of a bit more underground banging stuff, like the singles that I'm putting out now kind of have to work on the dance floor, but also the radio. So I would at some point like to do like a banging EP of like proper just
thumpers. So that's definitely an ambition of
Yeah.
mine.
And I mean, would you know, some artists kind of do that, and sometimes they put it out under a different name or a different moniker or whatever. Would you?
I'd love to do that
Yeah.
at some point. Yeah, I only have this one name though. There is no other artist project out there that is actually me. But at some point, I would that could be kind of fun. Maybe that's in 10 years' time. Though. I don't know.
A lot of dance music these days, especially singles, they have like a guest vocalist or they're a collaboration with someone. You know, is there anyone out there that you really respect that you would love to work with? Something that you can look on a future release? What's your feeling about collaboration?
Oh, I'm totally up for collaboration. I have so many collaborations as well, just like sat in a folder, waiting for the right moment to release stuff. Definitely love collaboration with vocalists. There's so many people out there that I would want to work with for sure.
Yeah.
You want names? I'm not going to give them to
No,
you.
I'm not.
You're like, right? Who? No.
No, don't worry. I know what these things are like, where it's like you say something and then for whatever reason it doesn't happen, and you're just like, oh man.
Yeah, and then exactly. Yeah, and then you just look like an idiot. So
Yeah.
I keep my mouth shut until literally like ready to like drop on Spotify. Then I start talking about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I want to talk about the drag scene and your involvement with that and your whole kind of persona. And you know, I'm like literally, you know, forgive me, I'm a straight white male. I have no idea about any of the language about any of this. So if I'm like inadvertently insulting you in any way, please tell me to shut the fuck up and correct me, because I need to grow and learn myself. So, you know, what I want to kind of know about is that obviously you're an icon within this scene, and you've got an amazing silhouette behind the decks. You know, it's like you could be in the shadow and you know exactly who that is. You know, do you feel the pressure to kind of maintain that look? How long does it take to put all of that together?
It takes a few hours to get ready for sure. I like 3 hours, and I can take my time and fully look like that. I started to do drag when I was 18, when I was at uni, and I just found this look that I over the first few years that I sort of stuck with and thought, oh, that suits me. And I was there because I never really like performed. I was always sort of the odd one out in the drag world, because the only thing that I had in common with other queens in London was the fact that I wore makeup and a wig too, and drag, a lot of drag, especially because of RuPaul's Drag Race being so popular now. A lot of drag is all about A, performance, but B, it's about changing up the looks and always looking different and being super creative with that. Whereas with me, it's almost a bit more uniform, and it's a bit, I just always want to look the same, and it's not out of laziness. It's just out of sort of not distracting from the music or the show. I'm not interested in like, you know, playing with like all different looks and stuff like that. It's, for me, it's all about the show. It's all about music.
Yeah.
And I love that it's iconic. It's like the hair is iconic. It's just like funny. But you know, I never like lip synced and performed or did all those traditional things. So I've never been in the drag scene. It's just that I do happen to wear makeup and hair, and I guess it helps me stand out and stuff. And like, so I feel like a bit of an odd one out in drag world. But then I obviously feel like an odd one out in DJ world, because I'm the only one. But then I don't know, maybe Daft Punk felt like the odd ones out because they were the only robots. I don't know. Or Dead Mouse was the only like Mickey Mouse impersonator. I don't know.
Well, and having that unique quality as well, that's
I think it's fun. Like, people remember me because of that. And you know, I think in dance culture, that like masks / costumes have often been played with. You know, and even like if you think like craft work and their suits and all that kind of stuff, you know, that these sort of like uniform or so iconic looks have been crafted by DJs since DJs really came about, and it is part of dance culture. And you know, dance culture comes from queer culture, a lot of it, as we know, as well as Black culture and Latin culture, and drag is a really big part of queer culture. And you know, in those clubs where house music was invented, trust me, there were fucking drag queens running around. So the straight white men better not have a fucking problem with me before they like, get out the fucking club otherwise if you really do. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is literally like at the roots of the culture that you're enjoying.
Yeah.
So I just happen to sort of be the only one really now that's, you know, on these lineups and whatever. So it's just, it is what it is. I don't know. It's my performance costume. It's what, I don't know. It's so uniform. I don't even think about it. I think about obviously what I'm going to wear and stuff, but I really don't think about it. It's just me getting ready for work, and by work I mean to perform.
Yeah. And you know, like you say, you are blazing that trail. You know, what advice would you give anyone, like someone starting out on their own journey into the scene? What would you say? What would you tell them?
What, doing drag?
Doing drag.
Don't fucking try it. I'll beat you up. Don't step on my turf, bitch. Fucking cut you. Joking, obviously. Just, you know, be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All that I don't know. The irony of that as you like slap loads of makeup on. Don't know. Just experimentation is fun, and you do you, bitch.
Brilliant. So I mean, and you're curating the queer club night Feel It at London's O'Meara. I mean, how do you approach putting that together? Is that like harking back to the times where you were, you know, running and promoting clubs?
Yes. So when we went into lockdown, I thought, I've got to do a club night I originally wasn't going to do club nights anymore. And I kind of like put an end to that. Was going to focus on music and DJing only. But went to lockdown and I thought, what people are going to need when this pure hell is over with, or starts getting better anyway, people are going to want somewhere really amazing to go out. And I thought, I've got to create that. And it's me and Clayton, who is a really good friend of mine, who has a club brand called Little Gay Brother, which is so amazing. And they're at all the festivals, and they do huge shows in London and elsewhere. And he does production for Peggy Goo and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's such a cool world. And we teamed up and we came up with this concept together called Feel It. And you know, that we went to O'Meara and asked if we could do it every Friday. And it was just going to be a very short-term project, but we've actually just celebrated 1 year, and it doesn't sort of show any signs of slowing down. So it's going to keep rolling until the wheels fall off, whenever that might be another year of it. I don't know, but right now it allows me to stay on that side of club culture, and I love the production, and I love also, it's like giving like 1,000 queer people a place to go every Friday night, where there's quality music, and it's such a fun experience. It kind of feels like what I imagine the Paradise Garage would have been like back in the day or something. It's like, it feels quite wild in there actually. Music's great, the venue's amazing, people are great, and we've also started bringing in really interesting DJs. And Patrick Topping played for us a few months ago. You know, he'd never played a queer party before. And I just hit him up on DM and I was like, hey, Patrick, can you come and play my party? He was like, yeah, let's do it. And we've got some other really good people coming up, and we've had some really great DJs, and some just really exciting stuff's gone on in that club. And I just really, really enjoy. This will be my last club. I won't do whenever Feel It does come to draws to a close, I won't set up another club night.
I'd imagine it's a lot of hard work as well.
Not really, because we share it, Clayton and I, and we play to our strengths. Like, I'm a lot more of the kind of creative, the vision, and he's Clayton's really organized and really like emails agents and does all that kind of stuff that I personally don't do. Dancer rotas, all that kind of stuff, and we both have an assistant each as well. Like, I have an assistant who called Jake, who basically like runs all the little nitty gritty sort of finer detail things of my life, which is like a huge help. So I can balance these, and I can wear these various hats, like the club hat, the touring hat, the music production hat, the songwriting session hat, I can juggle all these different hats. The podcaster hat, I can juggle these because I have a bit of extra help.
And yeah, you were like you've stolen my line. You're talking about hats. I was going to say you've got a podcaster hat as well because I do want to talk about that.
Podcast the wig. It's a wig. Podcast the wig.
The podcaster wig. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you found as well. I'm pleased to say you're a podcaster yourself. You host the Life of the Party podcast. Can you just tell our listeners what the format is of your podcast, and why people listening to this one should tune into that one? What goes on it?
So I chat to various pop cultural figures about their life via the dance floor, and how it sort of inspired them, and how it's informs their work or informs their life, and if they've met boyfriends on the dance floor, whatever. And I had some really cool people on. I didn't just want to do DJs. That was important to me, that I wanted to kind of explore people in other walks of life as well. Plus you do it with DJs already. So I wanted to sort of for example, we had Tom Daly, who I wanted to know how he celebrated winning the Olympics, in where he went out, where the first club he went, where was he going to gay clubs before he came out, blah blah blah. It's just questions and conversations around nightclubs and how important they can be to people's lives. As you know, as I spoke about, my nightlife experience was really helped shape who I am, and was, I wasn't suicidal or anything like that, but for sure I really, really needed nightclubs when I was 15. I needed that escape. I needed that place to go to and find out who I am. And like I said, I don't know where I would have been if I hadn't have done that. So nightlife can just be very, very important to people without even realizing it. People think, oh yeah, clubs, I just go to a club every few weeks, whatever, it's fun, a bit of dance with the girls, or whatever. But actually when you look into it, it can be a little bit more important than that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a community, isn't it? It's even
absolutely.
If whatever time of day it happens, if you've got hundreds of people who are enjoying the same thing, it's no matter what, it's a community.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, yeah. And so, what about podcasting do you love so much? Do you is it the chats, the intimacy, just the conversations? Tell me why you enjoy doing it.
Well, I do. I like out stuff about people, and I like talking about clubs, and it's just interesting. It's just interesting hearing other people's stories. I think.
Cool. Well, I mean, I'm going to move on to our playlist, our perfect playlist. So this is what can be found on Spotify. All of our guests have submitted tracks based on 5 themes. It's a huge beast. I think there's well over 200 tracks on there now. I think it's over 24 hours long, the whole playlist itself. So wow. It's a crazy listen. There's lots of random things in there, but also loads of really, really good, rich stuff. That some out of left field, some anthems. Just put it on shuffle. It's always a good listen. And you've been fantastic. We've got your 5 choices before the interview, so it's always worrying when you're going to do them live or you get them through quite late and you're like, oh no, I don't know if I'm going to recognise all of these. But yeah, no, they're all fantastic choices. So thank you for that. So we always start off with a catalyst tune, a track that got you into dance music. I'd imagine. Yeah. Was this one track that was maybe on that Ministry of Sound CD, do you think?
I think it might have been. This is so funny, this track. It's Gala, Free from Desire. It's so funny. It's going to look like such a comedy moment in your playlist. So I remember being in secondary school. It probably was on that Ministry of Sound compilation, actually. I was listening to this, actually, the other day. That's why I chose to put it in there as well, because there was sort of a load of tracks like this around at that time. There was what's she gonna look like with a chimney on her? That was all sort of around the same time. These kind of fun, dancey kind of vibes. But I was listening to this track the other day, and I'm so obsessed with the drama around the intro in the radio edit of this track. It's like a high string and the organ playing that melody, and it's just complete high drama, and it's just like a funny little hook, and everyone misinterpreted the lyrics. This my lover's got no money, he's got his strong beliefs. I used to think she was saying Trom beliefs. My lover's Trom belief, and I used to think what does that mean?
I'll tell you what, I've never even gone that deep into it. You've just told me what the lyrics are. It was like Trom beliefs, yeah.
My lover's got no money. He's got his strong beliefs. My lover's got no power. He's got his strong beliefs. It's just like a really simple little song over
Mm.
like a sort of a fun dance, crazy beat. So that's going in there. It's just like one of the tracks that are around at that time.
Yeah.
I'm at secondary school. These tracks are popping off they're on the radio. You can't escape them. And that's as my ears were pricking up to the world of dance music.
Yeah. And like you say, the drama of that opening, even to this day, just the first like it comes on, you're like,
My lover's come to money. It's like so good. It's actually amazing. It's amazing.
yeah, yeah. And okay, so the next choice is a floor filler, and I'm so happy you've chosen this because it is an absolute smash. You've already mentioned his name, but yeah, tell us what you've chosen.
Patrick Topping. I love Patrick Topping. Such a nice guy. He's a mate of mine. I love the music he makes. It's Patrick Topping B Sharp Say Now. It's an absolute fucking anthem.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's got that like gospel sample vocal with like big crowd cheers in it, which always pumps up a track a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love his trick night. I went to his night at DC 10 a few weeks ago. It was amazing. It's just an absolute. As soon as that dum 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 dum, as soon as that starts coming in, everyone's like, because like they recognize it. It's very like lads. This track. I like playing this at like big festival shows. So such like a straight track as well. That I love it when I play it because it's like such a laddie fucking like.
It's so huge.
Yeah, it's so huge. Even though it's got like a big gospel kind of female vocal on it, it really just feels like a fucking like pills. You know what I mean? I love it.
Yeah, I see so many people lose their minds to it. It's like, and when
Oh my
that
god! And when the
screaming
vocal
vocal
goes, it's just like the cum shot. I love it.
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah, it is like pow. Yeah, can this go any further? Yeah, bang.
Yeah, and then it does.
Amazing. Okay, so a sunsetter. What have you chosen for a sunset?
Sincere by MJ Cole.
Yeah, great choice.
I loved garage music when I was at school. Like we were all sort of hanging out in my school, listening to like "I Bring You Flowers in the Pouring Rain" and like "Sweet Like Chocolate Boy." And then this Sincere track is just such a, it's such a sort of, it feels like such a palate cleanser, and it's. I love the production. I love that it's very so filtered and like. I feel like some of the sounds are sort of like all those like or they're sort of like reversed.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what it's probably samples and stuff, but I feel like what he's done is like reverse stuff, and there's loads of filtering up and down, and it just reminds me of being at school listening to like pirate radio, smoking spliffs, and there's that really beachy kind of bass line is how I would describe it. Like the bass line sounds like you'd hear it like being played from like from a cafe at a beach or something. It sounds like a holiday, and I love that take a ride.
Take a ride, yeah.
On a wild side. It's just like it's so good.
Yeah, like you say, like a palate cleanser. Like there was all that stuff in the charts at the time, which was like garage in inverted commas, and then this was like, no, this is the real deal. This is the smooth production. You can tell a lot's gone into that.
My eyes are on you. Such a nice little song, and really, really love that. Love it.
Great choice. No, happy you put that in there. Okay, so a tearjerker. You've chosen two. I tell you, one of them is already in the playlist.
Which one?
The Kings of Tomorrow, finally, yeah.
Fuck's sake. Oh no!
But but we've had people choose things that have gone in there before. We just want to hear your story around it and why that is your choice. That's
Well, I wanted the Kings of Tomorrow. I wanted Finally by Kings of Tomorrow because it's just fantastic. It's the best soulful house tune there is. It's just the bass line and the keys, and it's still influential now. I feel like "Tell Me Something Good" by Ewan McVicar. Like the first time I heard it, like the musically reminded me of this. That's why I liked it so much. And it's just like a really emotive piece of soulful house music. Okay, so let's go with my other choice, which was it Wings by Armand van Helden? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I love Armand van Helden. Love his use of sampling. I love his sort of disco influence, and obviously love Duck Sauce, his project with A-Track. But this track Wings, it's just a very emotive. It's the top line really, and I think the musical melody follows the top line, and it's just really, it just sort of feels emotional.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's sung, the lyrics, is I won't let you down again, and just the melody just sounds very emotional. It's amazing how just like a collection of a few notes sung like that with using words could just bring out so much emotion. I don't particularly have like a dance floor memory of like hearing this and like I was in a breakup or anything like that. I just think it's like a really amazing tearjerker type emotional dance track that I'm obsessed with and wish I made.
Well, it's always the best recommendation, isn't it? Where you like you hear something, you're like, oh man,
fucking wish I made that. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And you've been really good actually, because the last tune, like the amount of times we speak to a DJ or a producer sometimes, and and in this whole list actually, you haven't chosen anything by yourself, which is quite rare.
Oh.
So
yeah,
it's good. You've been
didn't
quite.
think I was allowed to.
Well, no, you've been quite modest in that sense. So
yeah.
But you could do if you want. You could change any of those choices up previously if you wanted to swap one out. But so our last tune is
the last tune is Lola's Theme by the Shapeshifters, and I've over a few festivals this summer I have played this as the last tune. There's this sort of, I think it's where they recut it like 5 years ago or something. It sort of came out again, like some re-release. I think it's on Defected actually. And there's like a 9 or 11 minute sort of like really long version of it. It's great to close out a festival because soon as that soon as that starts filling up, everyone's like, oh, because it's so great. Everyone knows this tune. This came out, I think it must have come out in 2004 because that's when I moved to London and started going to nightclubs and working in clubs. And it was that real funky house era.
Yeah.
And Head Candy was like popping off. And this track, Lola's Theme, it's got that huge sample. It's like a Johnny Taylor sample, that musical orchestral kind of 2-bar loop that's in there. And it's just a big song. It's got loads of peaks and troughs, which I love, where it sort of brings you up and then it takes you back down again. She sings in a sexy way. And then you go back into that big musical moment with I'm a different person, and it's got that. It's so amazing. Yeah. And it just reminds me of just being in clubs in 2004 and whatever, when I was a baby. And yeah, it's working really well at the end of my DJ. Probably play it tonight at a festival at the end of my set. It's a good last tune. I wouldn't just play it in midway through a set. It kind of would feel a bit like, oh, what you doing that for? But it's a good sort of closing out. It's a really good closing out number.
Yeah. Perfect. And yeah, I mean, so at the end of all of that, we always come to a final question as well, which is, we've talked a lot about this in amongst the interview already, but we are house culture, and obviously we're not only interested in the music; it's all about the creativity within the scene, and people, places, and locations, and all kinds of different characters that are out there and what they kind of add to it. When you look at your place within that, and what it's brought you in your life, how do you sum it all up and, square it with yourself, and what has it brought you?
Well, it brings me a lot of satisfaction doing what I do. And I guess some people might just think, oh, it's just a party, or oh, it's just a song, or oh, it's a festival. It's like, it's a piss up, whatever. But actually, like I've mentioned a few times during this podcast, nightlife can be a really important thing for someone, whether it's a release, an escape, learning who you are. It can be a refuge. It can be community. And I think it's amazing to be a part of that for people, and to soundtrack it as well, because music, as we're just going through these tunes, music can change emotions, and music can do a lot of. Music's really medicine for me and for millions of people over the world. So it's great to share that with people. I think it's a real privilege to be able to share that with people. And as well, I think about, for the little queer kids or whatever, there was, when I was growing up, when I was a kid, there was no one like me. And there was certainly no one like me in dance, even in the dance music world, when I started moving into that world. Like, I'm just sort of doing it for like anyone who feels a bit different and happens to be a dance music fan or a music fan in general as well. I'm not saying I'm a role model, but because there's like quite a lot of pressure that comes with that. But just, I really stand out, and I am different too. I'm not your average like DJ bloke standing there, and I am different, and I am sort of like the black sheep in the playground. I always was. When I was at school, I was always different. I was all, you look at me at 5 years old and I'm sat there, like some little gay boy, clearly. It's always been shining out of me. Like I've always been this little queer kid. Yeah. And there's literally no difference now. I can be on a festival with like 100 straight white male DJs, you know what I mean? And and I'm totally like the odd one out, because I'm fucking sat there in a wig and a pair of high heels. And I'm good with that. I'm all right with that. That's kind of what I do. It is on purpose. I like to push a few buttons. I like to be different. And I like to represent that the world isn't just black and white. And I think what I do as well represents fun, because I think fun, especially after what we've just collectively gone through with COVID, I think a little bit of fun and a little bit of sparkle and a wig and some fun dance music is exactly what we need. So I do feel like it's sort of like my role to be one of the people that bring, I'm certainly not the only one, but it's definitely like my calling in life to like help facilitate that fun and bring that to people, and just doing that the best that I can. Yeah. And I want to just take it as far as fucking possible, because why not? No one else is going to, are they? So let's just fucking take the Jodie Harsh thing really far and have really loads of fun along the way.
Amazing. Yeah, what an answer. That is absolutely perfect. What a brilliant place to kind of finish up on. So no, thank you so much for taking part in the podcast. It's been a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure as well. Thank you for having me. I've loved it.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I hope your festival goes well tonight.
I'll go and start getting ready now. Better go and have a shave.
House culture.
Jodie's hilarious, isn't she? I had a blast with her doing that one, and I must apologise for some of the language used in there. Even I was getting in on the act at some points. But I'm sure you'll agree that she's been on an incredible journey and is a fabulous spokesperson for the LGBTQ+ community, as well as the club culture masses at large. And if you want to hear more from Jodie, you can find her podcast called Life of the Party wherever you get your podcasts. Whilst we're talking about other things to listen to, you can of course find our House Culture Perfect playlist over on Spotify. You can hear not only Jodie's excellent choices, but you can also check out what all of our other guests have submitted as well. It's a huge selection, so stick it on shuffle and turn it up loud. Then with that as your soundtrack, make sure you help support this podcast by doing all of that good stuff. Loving, liking, tweeting and sharing. Don't forget that if you share some kind words with us, we'll make sure to give you a shout out on a future episode. On this one, I have to say hi to the person on Instagram who goes by the name of House of Wagyu, as they got in touch to say that they live for these podcasts. However, could we get our perfect playlist onto Apple Music? Well, thanks for the nice comments, and I can say that we are working on getting the perfect playlist out there into all the other places we can think of, so watch this space. And then if you don't follow us already, come and join us on our Instagram feed at HouseCultureNet, or by following the hashtag #TrueHouseCulture. And finally, if you want to get in touch with me, Matt Rouse, you can do that directly on Instagram at DJ Matt Rouse. Thanks for listening, rave safe, and see you next time.
House culture.